Hi everyone, welcome back to Unfiltered, the podcast where we make international relations make sense. This is the next part of our ongoing United Nations series, and today we're talking about something which might sound kind of boring, but it's actually really foundational to how the world works. This is international law, UN courts, peacekeeping, and whether any of it really matters. Because here's the thing, the UN doesn't control countries, it doesn't have an army or a jail, so why do its laws matter, and why do countries follow it? Let's get into it. Let's start with a classic debate. Is international law really law? Because there's no global government, no world police, and no one who can physically enforce a country to listen. And yet, countries sign treaties, go to court, and they follow rules on war, trade, and diplomacy. Why? Because international law creates order. It sets expectations, and even though it's not always enforceable in the traditional sense, it works most of the time. Historically, different societies have had their own versions of international law. The Romans had jus gentium. Islamic scholars like Al-Shaybani wrote rules for war and peace, and Asian systems like China's tributary model set out codes for diplomacy. In Europe, thinkers like Grotius and Vattel laid the foundation for the modern version of international law, rules created by nations for nations. So let's break down what the UN actually has. First of all, we've got the International Court of Justice, or the ICJ, which settles legal disputes between states. It's kind of like a larger version of a courtroom, and one famous example is the Thailand versus Cambodia case over the Preah Vihear temple. The ICJ ruled in favor of Cambodia, but Thailand didn't fully accept it. Still, that ruling shaped diplomatic conversations, international pressure mounted, and neither side wanted to look like the other one ignoring global law. Then, we have the International Criminal Court, or the ICC, which prosecutes individuals for crimes like genocide, war crimes, and crimes against humanity. It's been quite controversial, but also very powerful. The ICC reminds political and military leaders that the world is watching. Apart from formal courts, there's something called customary international law. The unspoken rules that countries follow simply because they've always done it, like not bombing embassies or giving diplomats immunity. These aren't necessarily written in one treaty, but breaking them leads to larger international backlash. Now, let's take a look at the bigger picture. Today, the world is more divided than ever. Wars, trade battles, climate stress, shifting alliances. In this mess, multilateralism, that is, countries working together, feels harder than ever. A lot of governments are turning to bilateral deals, just two countries cutting a deal that serves their short-term interests. It's faster, easier, and you don't have to compromise. But here's the problem. This weakens the international system. When everyone acts alone, no one is held accountable, and it becomes a free-for-all, which is very dangerous. What happens when a country decides to invade another, or violate trade agreements, or even dump their waste into the ocean with zero regulation? Without a rules-based international order, we risk chaos. The UN and its legal bodies don't exist to control countries, but they exist to coordinate behavior and set a global standard. When it works, it's invisible, but when it breaks down, everybody feels it. And then there's the peacekeeping aspect. UN peacekeeping missions don't invade countries. They don't take sides. Instead, their job is to stabilize conflict zones, monitor ceasefires, and protect civilians. Whether it's post-genocide Rwanda, South Sudan, or the Democratic Republic of the Congo, UN peacekeepers help reduce violence and prevent wars from reigniting. Critics say the peacekeeping missions are somewhat slow or ineffective, and that's true. But here's the thing. Even when imperfect, they send a message the world is still watching, that a neutral presence is there and that diplomacy is still possible. So does it all really matter? In simple terms, yes. International law matters, peacekeeping matters, multilateralism matters. Because without them, there's nothing stopping the strong from dominating the weak. Nothing holding leaders accountable, and nothing creating a shared sense of order or legitimacy. International law isn't perfect, but it's better than nothing. And it's one of the last things standing between us and total geopolitical chaos. The UN laws and bodies might not have enforcement power like your country's police, but they're still followed. Not because they have to be, because most countries want to be a part of a stable system, and that's what keeps our world from falling apart. Thanks for listening to this episode of Unfiltered. If you liked this episode, share it to a friend, post about it, follow us, and just spread the word. Thank you so much.